The air inside the auction barn was thick with dust and tension, the kind that clung to the skin and refused to let go. Voices carried over the wooden rafters, a mixture of excitement, ridicule, and weary bargaining. Farmers leaned against posts, hats tilted low, murmuring their judgments of every animal brought out under the harsh glow of the lights. Most horses stood with ears pinned, resigned to their fates, but one stood apart. He was darker than the rest, a storm captured in flesh, black coat marred by scars, muscles tight as coiled rope, and eyes that burned with the warning of something wild. Every step he took against the lead rope was a battle. The handler grunted, nearly dragged off balance as the horse lunged sideways, hooves striking sparks from the cement floor. The auctioneer's voice thundered through the building, sharp and commanding. Lot 34. Untamed stallion, for years old. Strong as they come, but dangerous. No rider has lasted on him, not even half a minute. The words drew chuckles from the crowd. Someone whistled. Another man shook his head, muttering, "That beast belongs in a slaughter yard, not here." Laughter rolled through the barn as the horse reared, eyes rolling white, chest heaving like a creature trapped between fury and fear. His body bore the story of past battles, a welt across his flank, faint rope burns around his muzzle. Whispers grew into a chorus of dismissal. No one wanted him. He was too much trouble, too much risk, too much of everything that could not be broken. And then, through the haze of bodies and voices, a girl watched. She stood close enough to see the flecks of foam at the corners of the horse's mouth, yet far enough that no one noticed her quiet intensity. Her clothes were simple, denim faded from use, boots coated in dust, but her eyes told another story. Wide, unwavering, filled with something no one else offered the trembling creature recognition. Where the crowd saw danger, she saw pain. Where they saw defiance, she saw fear knotted deep in the muscle and memory of a life mishandled. The horse jerked violently against the rope, nearly toppling the handler. A few men laughed again, one calling out, "Who's fool enough to waste money on that devil?" The girl's fingers clenched into fists. The auctioneer barked for bids, but silence followed. Heads shook, eyes rolled. No one wanted the burden of a beast who would sooner crush a skull than carry a rider. "Come on now, folks," the auctioneer pressed, slamming the gavel against the stand. "A strong back like this. A prime age. Who'll start me at 500? His voice echoed unanswered. 400. Still nothing. 3. Desperation crept in. 200. The murmurs shifted to ridicule. Someone whispered, "They'll be giving him away by the end." Another spat tobacco juice into a cup and said, "Better shoot him and be done with it." The girl's heart hammered. Every word struck her like a stone, but her gaze never left the horse. She saw him rear again, neck arched, teeth flashing as if daring the world to chain him one more time. And something inside her, a memory she could not silence, surged to the surface. Her mother's voice, long gone but never forgotten. Every soul, no matter how broken, deserves one chance at gentleness. Before she realized she was speaking, her voice rose above the noise. 200. The barn went still. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. "We have 200, do I hear 250? Heads turned, necks craned, searching for the source. She felt their eyes on her, heavy, judgmental, amused. Her father's voice barked from the crowd, sharp with disbelief. "Anna, sit down." But she didn't move. Her chin lifted. She repeated, firmer this time, 200. The silence broke with laughter. "The little girl wants a killer horse," someone jeered. "Better dig her grave now." Another voice chimed, "She'll never ride him. He'll tear her apart." Her father pushed through the crowd, face red with fury and fear. "Anna, for God's sake, think about what you're doing. That animal isn't fit for anyone." His hand gripped her arm, but she shook him off. Eyes locked on the horse who still fought the rope, chest heaving like thunder trapped in a cage. The auctioneer, sensing drama that might revive interest, lifted his gavel high. 200 going once. He paused, scanning the crowd. No one challenged her. Going twice. The horse slammed his hooves against the ground, shattering the hush like gunfire. Sold for 200. The gavel cracked against the wood. The crowd erupted, half in laughter, half in disbelief. Anna's father swore under his breath, dragging his hat from his head and raking a hand through his hair. Men shook their heads as if she had bought herself nothing but disaster. Women clucked their tongues, whispering of foolish dreams. Children stared wide-eyed, waiting for the horse to crush the girl where she stood. The handler struggled to drag the stallion toward her. The closer he came, the more violent his thrashing grew. His front legs lashed, teeth bared, ears pinned flat as death. The handler cursed, sweat dripping down his temples. "Good luck, girl. He'll kill you before you touch him." With a final yank, he thrust the rope toward her. Anna stepped forward. The barn seemed to narrow around her, the roar of voices fading until only the pounding of hooves filled her ears. She reached for the rope, steady hands despite the tremor racing through her veins. The horse lunged sideways, striking the air with a force that rattled the boards. Gasps rose, people stumbling back, waiting for the inevitable. But she did not flinch. She held her ground, whispering a single word, quiet enough that only he could hear. The horse froze, sides quivering, eyes wide with confusion. For a breathless moment, the barn seemed to hold still, every sound swallowed by the silence between girl and beast. His gaze locked with hers. No longer just fire and rage, but something else flickered, something uncertain, something searching. Her grip tightened on the rope, gentle yet unyielding. She whispered again, softer this time, like a secret meant for him alone. The stallion's chest rose and fell, nostrils flaring as if inhaling her steadiness. Around them, the crowd murmured in disbelief, but she barely heard. Her world had shrunk to the space between her hand and his trembling frame. The moment stretched thin, fragile as glass. Then he lowered his head, only slightly, but enough to break the barrier that had kept the world from touching him. Anna exhaled, a shiver running through her spine, not of fear but of recognition. She knew then that she had not bought a monster. She had stepped into the path of a storm, yes, but storms, when met with patience, could sometimes be weathered. The barn erupted again, louder this time, a mix of scorn and amazement. Her father's voice rang above the rest, sharp with warning. "You don't know what you've done." But she did know. She had done the only thing her heart would allow. And as the stallion's wild eyes lingered on hers, a fragile thread of possibility bound them together. The crowd saw danger. She saw the beginning of something no one else believed possible. And though she did not yet know the cost, she was certain of one truth. She would not let him be broken. The trailer rattled along the dirt road, dust swirling behind it like a storm reluctant to fade. Inside, the black stallion slammed against the metal walls, hooves ringing like iron hammers. The driver cursed under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter, while Anna sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed forward. She could feel every blow of the horse's fury through the frame of the truck, yet she did not shrink back. She whispered words no one could hear but her, a rhythm of calm meant to steady herself as much as him. Her father drove in silence, jaw clenched, fury simmering in the space between them. When they reached the ranch, the sun was lowering, spilling red and gold across the fields. The trailer door creaked open, and at once the stallion bolted, a dark blur crashing against the metal gate at the ramp's end. He refused to move down, striking wildly, sweat lathering his coat. Anna climbed the ramp, her small frame dwarfed by his power. "Easy," she breathed, voice nearly lost in his snorts. Her father barked from the ground. "Stay back. He'll kill you." But she did not retreat. Inch by inch, she lifted her hand, palm open. The stallion thrashed, head flinging high, muscles bunching like storm clouds ready to split. Still she stood. Minutes dragged into hours, the sunset draining to night. Only when the moon crowned the horizon did the horse finally burst from the trailer, leaping past her in a frantic charge across the corral. She staggered back, breathless but unbroken. Neighbors gathered at the fence the next morning, drawn by gossip as much as curiosity. They leaned on rails, shaking heads and muttering wagers on how soon the girl would give up. Some said a week. Others said a day. One man spat. That horse will be her coffin. Anna ignored them. She spent her hours by the fence, never rushing, never demanding. She read aloud from books she had once shared with her mother, her voice a steady hum in the quiet air. The stallion stood at the farthest corner, ears flicking, eyes sharp, but he listened. Days turned into weeks, and though he did not come closer, he no longer charged the fence when she appeared. At night, when the ranch was hushed, she carried a lantern and sat on the corral post, reading until her voice grew hoarse. Sometimes she fell asleep there, her head tipped against the wood, the sound of his restless pacing below her like waves against the shore. Her father's patience thinned. One evening, after finding her asleep again by the pen, he snapped, "You're wasting time we don't have. That horse won't feed us, won't plow, won't ride. He's eating more than he's worth. He should have been meat long ago." Anna's throat tightened, but she met his eyes. "He's not meat. He's a life, and I won't let him be thrown away." Her father turned away, muttering, but the words lingered like sparks in the dark. The first shift came quietly. One morning, she left hay inside the pen, backing away instead of standing guard. For hours, the stallion circled warily, nostrils flaring, ears twitching to catch the faintest sound. At last, he stepped forward, muzzle lowering to the feed. Anna watched from beyond the fence, tears stinging her eyes. It was not victory, not even trust, but it was a beginning. Later that night, as she leaned against the fence, she noticed a scar across his flank. It caught the lantern's glow, pale against his dark coat, an old wound etched deep into his flesh. Her chest ached at the sight. She whispered, voice trembling, "Who hurt you?" The stallion flicked an ear, restless, but did not bolt. She pressed her forehead to the wood and promised softly, "No one will again." But the world beyond the ranch was not kind. At the general store, Anna overheard villagers talking. "Fool girl," one sneered, "wasting time on a killer horse." Another added, "Her father's land won't last a year. She should be working, not chasing fairy tales." She carried their words home like stones in her pocket, heavy and cutting. That night, as she brushed dirt from her boots by the door, her father repeated the same fears. "You can't save everything, Anna. You'll lose yourself trying." She turned away, swallowing the burn of tears. A storm came days later, clouds rolling thick and black across the sky. Wind tore through the trees, rattling the ranch with its fury. The stallion panicked, hurling himself against the fence, hooves striking with deadly force. Anna rushed into the pen, rain soaking her clothes, mud swallowing her boots. Her father shouted, "Get out!" But she pressed forward. The stallion reared, hooves slicing the air above her head. Lightning split the sky. She raised her arms, not in defense but in surrender. "I'm here," she cried through the storm, voice breaking. "I won't hurt you. I promise." The horse froze, trembling, ears flicking to her voice. She began to sing, soft and steady, a lullaby her mother had once sung to her. The storm still raged, but something in her tone cut through. Slowly, impossibly, the stallion's head lowered. His sides heaved, nostrils flaring against the rain, and for the first time, he stood still in her presence. She reached out, fingertips brushing the wet air between them. He did not strike. When the storm passed, father and neighbors stood silent at the fence, disbelief written across their faces. Anna remained in the pen, soaked to the bone, her hands trembling from exhaustion. The stallion stood a breath away, not yet close enough to touch, but close enough to prove something had changed. That night, lying in bed, Anna stared at the ceiling, listening to the quiet drip of rain from the eaves. Every part of her ached, but her heart burned with a fierce certainty. For the first time since the auction, she felt hope take root. The horse was not tamed, not even safe, but he had listened. He had chosen not to destroy her. And in that choice, she saw a door cracked open, a sliver of trust waiting to grow. She closed her eyes and whispered into the dark, as if he could hear her across the ranch. "We'll get there. You and me." And though the world doubted, though her father despaired, she believed. Morning light spilled across the ranch, brushing the fields in pale gold. The stallion stood at the fence, dark against the rising sun, his ears pricked toward the house, as if waiting. Anna stepped out with a bucket of grain, moving slowly, every gesture deliberate. Weeks of patience had taught her that haste invited disaster. She set the bucket down and stepped back. He approached, nostrils flaring, hooves crunching softly against the dirt. His muscles twitched, ready to bolt, but he lowered his head and began to eat. Anna's chest swelled with cautious pride. It was progress, fragile and uncertain, but progress all the same. Each day became a ritual. She rose before dawn, carrying water and feed, lingering by the corral until he grew accustomed to her presence. She hummed softly, the same melody she had sung during the storm, and though he never moved closer than a few feet, his ears always flicked to catch her tune. Gradually, she began to step inside the pen. At first, he backed away sharply, eyes wild, but with each attempt, his retreat grew shorter. The first time he let her stand within arm's reach, Anna's breath caught like a bird trapped in her chest. She didn't touch him. Not yet. She simply stood there, the air between them alive with tension, until he lowered his head and exhaled. The weeks tested her resolve as much as his. Some days he lunged suddenly, teeth bared, reminding her that trust was still fragile, a thread stretched thin. Once he struck the fence so violently a post cracked in half, sending her stumbling back in fear. Doubt pressed hard in those moments, whispering that everyone had been right, that she was chasing a dream destined to break her. But each time despair threatened, she remembered her mother's words, and the image of the horse standing still in the storm returned to her. If he had given her that moment once, he could give it again. One afternoon, while brushing hay from her clothes, she heard footsteps crunching on gravel. A tall man leaned against the corral, hat shading his eyes, boots worn from years of work. His voice carried the slow drawl of someone who had lived long around horses. "That's the Untamable one, isn't it?" She nodded warily. He studied the stallion, who tossed his head at the stranger's scent. "Most folks would have given up by now," he said. "Some horses are too broken." Anna's jaw tightened. "He's not broken, just hurt." The man's eyes lingered on her, measuring. At last he nodded. "Maybe so. Just remember, trust comes before control. Try to force him, and you'll lose him." With that, he tipped his hat and walked away, leaving his words behind like seeds planted in soil. Encouraged, Anna began introducing simple tools, a rope draped loosely over her arm, a brush held where he could see. At first, he recoiled, eyes flaring at the sight of anything that hinted of restraint. But she never pushed. Day after day, she showed him the rope, the brush, letting him sniff, letting him decide. Slowly, painfully slowly, he allowed the brush to skim across his neck. His skin quivered, but he did not strike. Anna's hands shook with the weight of the moment. She whispered, "Good boy," voice trembling, as though afraid the words themselves might shatter the fragile peace. The first attempt to ride him came weeks later. She didn't saddle him. She knew he would never accept leather and buckles yet. Instead, she slipped inside the pen at dawn, moving with the care of someone stepping onto a frozen lake. She laid her hands against his neck, feeling the tremor beneath his skin. With a deep breath, she swung a leg gently across his back. For one suspended heartbeat, he held still. Then the storm erupted. He bolted forward, bucking with violent force. Anna clung desperately, her heart slamming, but within seconds she was thrown, crashing into the dirt with a cry. Pain shot up her side, stealing her breath. The stallion reared, nostrils flared, hooves flashing dangerously close. Her father rushed to the pen, dragging her away, fury blazing in his eyes. "Enough. You'll kill yourself trying to tame that demon." Anna lay on the ground, chest heaving, but her gaze never left the horse. Despite the pain, she whispered, "I won't give up." Her father shook his head, helpless, torn between anger and fear. That night, bruises blooming across her skin, doubt gnawed at her. Maybe the horse truly was untamable. Maybe her stubbornness was nothing but foolishness in disguise. But when she walked to the pen in the quiet hours before dawn, she found the stallion standing at the gate, waiting. No wild thrashing, no furious defiance. Just waiting. Her breath caught. She opened the gate and stepped inside without a rope, without a plan, only her heart steady in her chest. "If you don't want me," she whispered, voice raw, "I'll walk away. But I'll never stop believing in you." She turned, ready to leave. The stallion snorted sharply, hoof striking once against the earth. When she looked back, he was following her, slow and hesitant but following, choosing her without force, without command. Tears blurred her vision as she walked, each step echoing louder than any applause she could imagine. Their bond deepened after that night. He began to meet her at the gate each morning, ears forward, a low nicker rumbling in his chest. She brushed him without resistance, his body gradually relaxing under her touch. He allowed her to guide him with nothing but her voice and an open palm. When she lay down in the grass outside the pen, he sometimes stood near, shadow falling across her as if keeping watch. Then word came of the county fair. A riding competition promised prize money large enough to ease the ranch's debts. Her father mentioned it offhand, not realizing how the thought would ignite in her. Winning could prove everything: her faith in the horse, her belief in second chances, her dream of saving the ranch. But when she told him she wanted to enter, his face hardened. "No, it's too dangerous. That horse isn't ready," Anna argued, her voice trembling with urgency. "We can do it. He's changed. I know he has." But her father's refusal was final. "I won't watch you die for pride." The decision burned inside her, impossible to silence. She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the stallion's restless shifts in the pen outside. The fair was a chance not just for money, but for proof, for both of them. They were no longer a broken girl and a wild horse. They were something stronger, forged through patience, pain, and stubborn hope. At dawn, before her father woke, Anna slipped into the pen. The stallion met her eyes, ears forward, muscles coiled with quiet energy. She placed a hand on his neck, feeling the steady beat beneath his skin. Then, slowly, she swung onto his back. This time, he did not explode. He shifted uneasy, but did not throw her. She leaned close, whispering into his mane, "It's you and me now." The first rays of sunlight broke across the ranch, painting them in gold as they moved together, unsteady but united. And in that fragile moment, Anna knew the path ahead would be dangerous, perhaps impossible, but it was theirs to take. The fairgrounds buzzed with energy, the morning air thick with dust and excitement. Horses stamped in their stalls, children tugged at parents' hands, and banners rippled in the breeze. Anna led the stallion through the crowd, her heart pounding as if it would split her chest. His dark coat gleamed in the sunlight, every muscle taut with barely contained fire. People turned to stare, whispers trailing after them. Some recognized the wild horse that had once been declared untamable. Others shook their heads, muttering that a reckless girl was about to ruin herself. Anna kept her gaze forward, her hand resting lightly against the stallion's neck. He flicked his ears toward the noise, but did not shy. That small act of trust steadied her trembling resolve. Her father had not spoken to her that morning. When he realized she had taken the horse, anger had burned in his eyes, but beneath it she had glimpsed fear, fear sharper than any rebuke. She carried his silence like a stone in her chest, but she could not turn back. This was the moment they had fought for together, the test that would prove the stallion's strength and her own. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, calling riders to the start. The competition was not for amateurs. The course tested control, courage, and partnership. Riders would navigate sharp turns, sudden jumps, and obstacles designed to expose hesitation. Anna inhaled deeply, guiding the stallion into the lineup. He tossed his head, muscles rippling, and she whispered the tune she had always sung to calm him. His ears flicked back to catch the sound. When their turn came, the gate swung open with a clang, and the world narrowed to the track before them. The stallion surged forward, hoofs striking like thunder. Wind tore against Anna's face as they entered the first curve. He fought the bitless rope halter she had fashioned, testing her, but she leaned low and whispered, "Trust me." His stride lengthened, powerful and sure. They cleared the first jump, the crowd's murmur swelling into surprised cheers. But the second obstacle loomed higher, sharper, a wall that had broken many seasoned riders. Anna felt his hesitation in the tightening of his muscles, the flick of his ears. For a heartbeat, fear threatened to unravel her. If he refused, if he bolted, everything would collapse. She pressed her legs gently, voice steady though her heart raced. "We can do this." With a snort that shook the air, he launched upward. They soared together, clearing the wall with inches to spare, landing hard but balanced. Gasps erupted from the stands. Every stride became a test of their fragile bond. Sweat streaked his neck. Her palms burned from the rope, but neither yielded. At the final turn, a narrow passage lined with flags, he faltered, eyes flashing white. The flags snapped sharply in the wind, a memory of tarps whipping during the storm. His body coiled, ready to bolt. Anna's breath caught. If she forced him now, the past would swallow them both. Instead, she loosened her grip, leaning forward to rest her hand against his trembling neck. "It's just us," she whispered. "Just us." The stallion's ears twitched, his breath shuddering. Then, with a burst of raw power, he charged through the passage, scattering dust in his wake. The crowd erupted as they crossed the finish line. Anna's cry of triumph carrying above the roar. She leaned against his mane, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, the world did not see a wild beast or a reckless girl. They saw a partnership forged in trust. Yet as the cheers faded, her father stood at the edge of the arena, arms crossed, face unreadable. Anna dismounted slowly, leading the stallion toward him. Fear pressed heavier than any obstacle she had faced. When she stopped before him, silence stretched, broken only by the horse's steady breathing. At last, her father's voice cut through, low and rough. "You made a fool out of me today." Anna's stomach dropped, but before she could speak, he added softer, "And you made me proud." His hand trembled as he reached to stroke the stallion's muzzle. The horse flinched, then stilled, eyes watching. Something unspoken passed between man and beast, a fragile acknowledgement of survival and strength. The announcer called for winners, and though Anna had not placed first, the stallion's falter at the flags had cost them precious seconds. The crowd's admiration clung to her like sunlight. Strangers approached, offering praise, some even asking to buy the horse. Anna refused each with a firm shake of her head. He was not for sale. He was not a prize to be traded. He was family. As the fair ended and lanterns flickered against the dusk, Anna led the stallion back to the trailer. Her father walked beside her in silence until they reached the gate. He paused, glancing at her with eyes weary yet softened. "You proved something today. To me, to everyone, but most of all to him." He nodded toward the horse. "You didn't tame him, Anna. You taught him to trust. That's rarer than any victory." That night, long after the fairgrounds emptied, Anna sat by the stallion's pen, the cool air carrying the faint scent of hay and dust. The moon cast silver light across his coat as he grazed quietly. She thought of every moment that had led them here. The storm, the fear, the bruises, the doubt. None of it had broken them. Instead, it had bound them together. She reached through the rails, brushing her fingers along his mane. "We're not done," she whispered. "This is just the beginning." The stallion lifted his head, eyes glimmering in the moonlight. For the first time, he stepped closer on his own, pressing his muzzle gently into her hand. Anna's heart swelled with quiet certainty. Whatever trials awaited, debts, storms, or losses, they would face them side by side. Their story was no longer about taming the untamable. It was about healing what had been broken and finding strength in the fragile threads of trust. The night stretched calm and endless, but Anna felt the horizon pulling at her, promising more trials, more victories, more chances to prove that hope was never wasted. And as the stallion breathed warm against her hand, she knew the journey they had begun was far from over. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing. I bring true, heartfelt stories every day.